The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty streets of Iloilo Province as 8-year-old Ramona padded barefoot into the kitchen, drawn by the familiar sounds of her family's breakfast conversation. The year was 1985, and life moved at a slower, simpler pace in their small fishing village, where the scent of dried fish and the distant cry of seagulls filled the air each dawn. Her father had already left for the market, his weathered hands carrying the night's catch to sell alongside her mother's vegetable stall. The family lived modestly but comfortably, never hungry but never indulgent, existing in that precarious balance between poverty and stability that defines so many Filipino families of that era. "Eat quickly, little one. We have somewhere to go today," her older sister Maya announced, her melodious voice carrying the authority that came with being 16 and beautiful. Maya possessed the kind of striking features that made people stop and stare. Tall, graceful, with the golden brown skin and sharp cheekbones that suggested distant Spanish ancestry mixed with native Filipino blood. As they walked through the humid morning air toward the neighboring witchcraft, Ramona noticed how her sister's long black hair caught the sunlight, how her simple dress couldn't disguise the natural elegance that had attracted a parade of suitors to their doorstep. Their parents had firmly discouraged all romantic advances, determined that Maya would finish her education before considering marriage. The destination was Maria's house, where Maya's closest school friend lived with her aging grandmother. The modest bamboo structure sat at the edge of the witchcraft, partially hidden by overgrown banana trees that cast dancing shadows across the yard. Maria greeted them at the door with a smile that seemed forced, her eyes holding a strange intensity that made Ramona instinctively step closer to her sister. There was something unsettling about the way Maria looked at Maya, not the warm affection of friendship, but something darker, more calculating. "I brought back your dress," Maya said cheerfully, unaware of the undercurrent of tension that Ramona could feel like electricity in the humid air. As the two older girls chatted, Maria explained her family's impending move to the northern provinces. Her grandmother's sister was dying and had bequeathed them land, a final gift that would take Maria away from everything she knew. But beneath her words of excitement about new opportunities, Ramona detected something else, a bitter resentment that seemed to radiate from Maria like heat from sun-baked concrete. While Maya examined the borrowed dress Maria returned to her, Ramona watched Maria's face carefully. The smile never reached her eyes, which remained fixed on Maya with an expression that made the young girl's skin crawl. It was the look of someone harboring a secret grudge, someone who smiled while planning revenge. "Why do you have to leave? Is there a problem here?" Maya asked with genuine concern. Maria's response was smooth, practiced, but Ramona caught the flash of something venomous in her expression before the mask slipped back into place. "My grandmother insists. She says she feels death approaching and wants us to claim the inheritance before it's too late." The conversation continued for another 30 minutes, but Ramona found herself unable to shake the growing sense of unease that settled over her like a cold fog. Even at 8 years old, she possessed an intuitive understanding of human nature. When they finally said their goodbyes, Maya seemed oblivious to the malevolent energy that Ramona had sensed, chatting happily about missing her friend as they walked home through the afternoon heat. "It's sad that Maria has to leave," Maya mused, holding the return dress up to examine it in the sunlight. "She's been such a good friend." But as they approached their family's small house, Ramona couldn't shake the feeling that Maria's friendship had transformed into something far more dangerous, and that the innocent-looking dress her sister carried would soon become the vessel for a darkness that would threaten to destroy everything they held dear. The borrowed garment fluttered in the warm breeze, appearing harmless and ordinary. But Ramona would later remember this moment as the beginning of their descent into a nightmare that would test the very foundations of her family's faith and survival. Back home, Maya eagerly tried on the return dress, pleased to find it clean and fragrant from Maria's careful washing. The fabric felt soft against her skin as she smoothed it over her slender frame, admiring her reflection in their small mirror. But within hours, what had begun as a pleasant afternoon would transform into something that defied all rational explanation. By midday, Maya began complaining of an intense itching sensation that seemed to crawl across her back like thousands of tiny insects burrowing beneath her skin. She scratched frantically, but the relief was temporary, the sensation returning with increased intensity each time. "It feels like I'm being bitten by an army of ants," she whispered, her voice strained with discomfort. "Ever since I put on this dress, it's been getting worse." When she finally removed the garment and turned her back to the mirror, the family gathered in stunned silence. Maya's smooth golden skin was covered in angry red welts that seemed to pulse with their own malevolent life. The raised bumps were perfectly circular, too uniform to be natural insect bites, and they glowed with an unnatural crimson hue that made them appear almost phosphorescent in the dim light of their home. "Do not wear that dress again," their mother commanded, her voice shaking with a fear she couldn't quite articulate. She quickly fetched a clean blouse for Maya, but the damage had already been done. As the afternoon wore on, the welts grew larger and more inflamed, taking on a disgusting, postulant appearance that made the family's stomachs turn. Maya's beautiful back became a landscape of horror, each bump seeming to throb with its own rhythm, as if something alive were growing beneath her skin. The family doctor, a kindly old man who had delivered all 3 children, prescribed a simple antihistamine and assured them it was likely an allergic reaction. But his confident diagnosis felt hollow in the face of what they were witnessing. By evening, Maya's condition had deteriorated beyond anything medical science could easily explain. The welts had begun to weep a clear, foul-smelling fluid that attracted clouds of flies, creating a buzzing, nauseating atmosphere around her. The stench was unlike anything they had ever encountered. A mixture of rotting flesh and something chemical, something unnatural. Maya herself seemed to be wasting away before their eyes, her face gaunt and hollow, her once bright eyes now sunken and surrounded by dark circles. She moved like an old woman, her youthful vitality draining away with each passing hour. As night fell, the family's worst fears were realized. Around 9 o'clock, piercing screams erupted from Maya's bedroom, sounds of such pure terror that they seemed to shake the very foundations of their small house. When Ramona and their brother Roman burst through the door, they found their parents struggling to restrain Maya, who was writhing on her bed as if being attacked by invisible forces. Flies swarmed around her in dense black clouds, their buzzing creating a hellish symphony that filled the room. The smell of decay was overwhelming, making it difficult to breathe. Maya's body was drenched in cold sweat, her skin clammy and pale as moonlight. But it was the sound from outside that truly terrified them, the rhythmic ticking of a shape-shifting monster circling their property, a supernatural creature of Filipino folklore that fed on human flesh and souls. The sound grew louder and more insistent, as if the creature were being drawn by Maya's suffering. For 30 agonizing, Maya thrashed and screamed while the family held her down, praying desperately for whatever dark force had taken hold of her to release its grip. When she finally fell still, her eyes rolled back, showing only the whites, and her breathing became shallow and labored. When Maya finally regained consciousness, she was no longer the vibrant young woman they had known. Her face was gaunt and aged, her body frail as if she had been drained of her very life force. But most disturbing of all were her words when she finally spoke. "Maria," she whispered, her voice hoarse and broken. She was so angry, so jealous. She said, "I always got everything: the teacher's attention, the boy's interest, everything she wanted. She said she couldn't bear watching me have what she could never possess." The realization struck the family like a physical blow. The borrowed dress hadn't been returned as an act of friendship, but as a weapon, a vessel for Maria's jealousy and rage, infused with dark magic, intended to destroy the beauty and happiness she could never have for herself. As Maya's horrifying account of her supernatural encounter unfolded, the family realized they were dealing with forces far beyond their understanding. The traditional remedies and modern medicine had both failed, leaving them with only one option: the ancient wisdom of the folk healer. The folk healer who dealt with matters of the spirit world. Despite their mother's initial skepticism about such practices, the desperate circumstances forced the family to abandon their rational reservations. Maya's father and brother ventured into the night to summon Mr. Fred, a respected folk healer whose reputation for dealing with supernatural afflictions extended throughout the region. Even at the late hour, the old healer arrived without question, his weathered face grave with concern as he surveyed the situation. His experienced eyes took in the swarming flies, the putrid smell, and Maya's drastically altered appearance, nodding grimly as if he had seen such horrors before. "This is the work of a powerful curse," he declared, his voice heavy with authority. "Someone with deep knowledge of the dark arts has cursed this girl. The shape-shifting monster that circles your home is connected to the one who cast this spell. They share blood, but serve different purposes in this unholy alliance." Mr. Fred's diagnosis confirmed their worst fears. The borrowed dress had been deliberately enchanted, infused with malevolent energy designed to drain Maya of her beauty and vitality. As he began his ritual cleansing, burning herbs that filled the air with sharp medicinal smoke, he explained that such curses were born of pure envy, the kind of jealousy that could transform even the closest friend into a deadly enemy. The healing ceremony was unlike anything the family had ever witnessed. Mr. Fred chanted in ancient dialects, his hands moving in complex patterns over Maya's suffering body. A small vial of blessed oil began to bubble and foam without any heat source, while a religious medallion he wore glowed with an intense heat that seemed to burn against his chest. As the ritual progressed, the oppressive atmosphere in the room began to shift. The flies that had swarmed around Maya dispersed, the terrible smell gradually faded, and the sound of the shape-shifting monsters ticking grew distant and finally disappeared entirely. "The curse has been broken," Mr. Fred announced, his medallion cooling and the oil in his vial returning to its normal state. "But I offer you a choice. I can send this evil back to its source, make the one who cast it suffer as your daughter has suffered." Despite her weakened state, shook her head firmly. "No," she whispered, tears streaming down her hollow cheeks. "I loved Maria like a sister. I can't believe she would do this to me, but I won't become like her. I won't let hatred poison my heart the way it poisoned hers." Her decision to choose forgiveness over revenge spoke to the strength of her character, but it also meant that Maria would face no supernatural consequences for her actions. The family could only hope that the weight of her conscience would be punishment enough. Over the following days, Maya slowly began to recover. The hideous welts on her back faded. Her natural beauty returned, and her strength gradually came back. But she was forever changed by the experience, marked by the knowledge that someone she had trusted completely had attempted to destroy her out of pure malice. When the family ventured to Maria's house to confront her and seek some kind of reconciliation, they found only empty rooms and locked doors. The neighbors reported that Maria and her grandmother had fled in the early hours of the morning, taking only what they could carry and leaving no forwarding address. Years have passed since that terrifying summer of 1985, but the memory of Maria's betrayal remains etched in the family's collective consciousness. Maya eventually married and built a happy life, but she never forgot the lesson about the dangerous power of envy and the thin line between love and hatred. Sometimes on humid nights when the air grows thick and oppressive, Ramona still wonders about Maria's fate. Did the darkness she embraced eventually consume her completely? Does she still practice the malevolent arts that nearly destroyed an innocent girl's life? And most disturbing of all, in a world where jealousy can be weaponized and friendship can mask the deepest hatred, how many other borrowed dresses carry curses, waiting patiently for their next unsuspecting victim to slip them on and invite the darkness in? The questions remain unanswered, lingering in the shadows like the memory of that terrible summer when evil wore the face of friendship, and trust became the most dangerous luxury of all.